Presented by the Making Star Wars Podcasting Network. This is the Cantina Cast, your watering hole for thought-provoking Star Wars discussion, character dissections, quote and scene analysis, honest opinions on the Star Wars news that interests you, and whatever else these guys come up with. Here are your hosts, Mike and Joa.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Cantina Cast. This is episode 197, which is brought to you by Mission to Zix, a brand new improvised comedy podcast, and we'll have more on that in a little bit later after our news segment. So, Joa, let's get into this. We got a bit of this is kind of like this issue that's it's been out there in the background, Joa. Like, it's kind of, I don't know, it's just keeps resurfacing, and it's kind of like in the last couple of weeks in the chat, in the Discord chat and everything. And that's this Jabba the Hutt clickbait movie title stuff. And this just sounds a little ridiculous to me that they would do a Jabba the Hutt movie. Now, if you're going to make it like a gangster movie, okay, there's a way to do that. But as you debated in the chat, it would have to be in the way that he's a central character, but he's not the central character. Like, a lot of things happen around him, so to speak. But what are your thoughts on this Jabba the Hutt nonsense?
Well, yeah, this came out like I think the day after the Obi-Wan thing came on, and I think they just liked the clicks. So, like, they said, oh, well, now they're working on a Jabba the Hutt movie too, didn't you know? So I think it's just total, I think it's total clickbait, I mean, it's just, oh, are they, I mean, come on, Jabba can't do anything. We've had this discussion before on the podcast. He can't do anything. He can't move. Like, I mean, what are you going to do? I mean, is he going to be Marlon Brando? Like, that's ridiculous in of itself that they even think that you're going to, I mean, it would have to be in subtitles every time he talked. Now, the idea of the gangster type, whatever movie, okay, whatever, maybe you could do that.
You'd have to have more than him as a Hutt. Like, you'd have to have Zero and stuff popping in.
Well, it wouldn't be about him. He wouldn't be the one going out on the adventures. He might be the guy who, like, gives somebody a mission at the beginning of the movie, and then maybe he pops in on like a holo projector. But does that make it his movie? Is that a Jabba the Hutt movie at that point?
No, not really. No, exactly. That's what I mean. I mean, how can you make it, unless you make it, I can't see any way, like even The Godfather, if you made it, I guess they could pull it off. I just don't see how they could do it. Or if Jabba is that compelling to anyone other than Ashley, your wife, I don't think anyone really is a big fan of Jabba the Hutt. I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this is a part of fandom I'm not too familiar with. I don't know. But
I don't think you're missing out on anything. I don't think that there's anything out there. I think that I don't think there's anybody out there clamoring for this movie. And our old buddy Crowley today, he was in our Discord channel, shameless plug. If you want to come check us out on Discord, check our social media pages or email us at cantinacastfanmail@gmail.com, and I'll get you set up if you can't find it, to come talk with us in that lovely channel that we've got. But he brought up today, and he says, he's like, who's clamoring for these movies, even the Obi-Wan movie? And I said, well, I think people want the Obi-Wan movie. And he's like, okay, but what about the Han Solo movie? And I was like, okay, yeah. I don't know who was asking for that movie. And that was his point, is he's like, who's asking for these movies? And I think the overwhelming response is that it doesn't matter really what we're asking for. It's what their marketing department, I think, is what's going to sell. Now, if they think a Jabba the Hutt as a main character is going to sell in a movie, I think it's kind of actually, I don't even know. I probably even shouldn't have even put this in the show notes to even talk about this, because it is ridiculous, and I know it's not going to happen. But I just have to say, I think I put it in here just because I needed to say this one more time. It is absolutely ridiculous that Jabba the Hutt is not going to be the main central character in any movie, because in any way, shape, or form, it doesn't make any sense. He doesn't speak basic. It would be in subtitles when he talks. He can't really move. he can't do anything. He could tell people what to do, and that would be he'd be basically like he'd be like Charlie in Charlie's Angels. That would be, but Charlie wasn't the star, it was the Angels. So, it's not really a Jabba the Hutt movie at that point.
Well, it was still his movie in a way because they said Charlie's Angels. So this would be Jabba's Angels starring Ashley. I don't know. I just think it's kind of
the one and the only
I could
Angel
see if you did,
starring Snoke and Ashley.
The only thing I could see them doing is a gangster type movie. But and I know they had the old Star Wars Underworld stuff. And there's a lot of there was a hut that was involved because it was dirty and all that stuff. It was like gangster type stuff. So you would have a hut or whatever. So I'm not surprised that they would explore. I think what happened is maybe something got brought up with Jabba and maybe an idea involving him in a story and, the clickbait thing, mentality, it's going to be a movie all of a sudden. And then, that's where people run with it and whatnot. So, but anyway. Enough of these movie things, this spin-off stuff, which I think is going to be on hold for a little bit after Han Solo. That's just my prediction. But anyway, let's get into Force Friday, which for us, Joe, I don't know, it seems a little odd for us because I was kind of excited. I went out for the first Force Friday. It was a bit exciting. Of course, that was with the whole, we waited 30 some odd years for the Force Awakens, all this stuff. There was a lot of excitement. This one here, I don't know if it's because they've leaked all the toys already and we've seen most of the images and maybe because it's all Porg, centric, so to speak, and all that stuff. And I know the Lego thing, they have something to reveal. And I thought it was the Millennium Falcon, but I could be wrong. I don't know if they have officially revealed it or whatever, that Lego's doing the biggest build or whatever. So there's that. But overall, I don't see anything that really jumps out at me like, oh, I got to be out at Target at midnight or Toys R Us at midnight, other than the Shore Trooper thing, the little Lego guy. I would like to do that, but you got to spend like $50 on that. And I don't know if I even want to do that at this point, but it just, nothing's jumped out at me. It's almost like I want to wait till the movie comes out and see what's after that, like the second wave and all. And maybe that's been announced. I don't know. There's so many things going around. So I don't know. Nothing has jumped out at me. For me, it's like I want to see the movie to see what Sideshow's going to do. And because I love Sideshow, I'd rather spend my money on that. I don't see anything out of all this other stuff that's coming out that's really jumping out at me right now. I don't know. Are we being grumpy old men or something? I don't know. What do you think, Joe?
Yeah, so by the time almost all our listeners are going to hear this, Force Friday will have already passed. And I think, Mike, if you do buy anything, you just decided it's going to be on Amazon or whatnot. I was going to go out. I said, well, let me go out. Let's do the experience. And then we'll hold off doing the podcast. Like we'll wait and do the podcast this weekend and we'll do it after. And then I said, you know what? I got to be at work at like 4 a.m. I don't want to readjust like my, sleeping schedule and take a nap during the middle of the day and this, that, the other. And then, be there at midnight. And then like after all that, if there is any excitement to it, and then have to go like straight to work, like, and then just, so I was like, I'm not going to do it. Like, I'm not going to motivate myself to do it. I just know myself and I'm not going to go out and do it. And because like, you're right, like nothing's jumping out at me. I've got the 6-inch Rey and Luke combo, the San Diego Comic-Con thing that they did. Yeah. And like, I've got Rey, I've got Luke. Like, that's kind of really all I want. And everybody's like, hey, Joa, what about Kylo? What about Adam Driver? What about Adam, Joa? And I'm like, yeah, I mean, but I'm not seeing anything. Now, I do like his tie, what is it, the silencer? Is that it?
Yeah, that looks pretty cool.
But like, and then like I saw it, like a picture of it out of the box, and it's just like a big, I mean, that's what all it is. It's just a big hunk of plastic. And I'm just like,
well I know.
And yeah. I know that. And it's just, but it just didn't. I was like, now I would like if Sideshow, what if they made the silencer? Like, I know they don't really do ships,
do vehicles,
but what if they did? Like, I was like, that would be amazing because it does look pretty cool. And I can't wait to see it in the movie because I think it's going to be ridiculous in the movie and look really cool. But the toy out of the box.
Well, you get to play it in Battlefront.
That'll be, I'll get to live it But yeah, but but yeah, I just besides that, like I was like, well, how much is it gonna? It's like $60 price tag on it. It's like, nah, I'm not gonna do it. I'm over it, man. Like I'd rather get a poster, or something else. Like I would rather do something else Star Wars than just funnel the money in, I guess, to Hasbro.
Well,
I don't know.
I'll say this with the silencer and stuff, and this is what I thought it was initially, because this is what I actually thought was a surprise with Rogue One and the Force Awakens when it came out, is the little snap type models. I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but I got the TIE Fighter and I got Poe's X-Wing, and it's not bad quality. It's like, all right, it's not, the greatest thing in the world, but for like a couple of, like, I think it was $10-15 or whatever it was at the time. I can't remember. It might even be cheaper than that, to believe it or not. The silencer wouldn't be bad for that. Like, I wouldn't mind picking that up. But again, I'm not going to go out at midnight and do that. I can do that on Amazon or Target online and stuff like that. I'm not going to necessarily go. I mean, it is exciting being around, and it was exciting being around the other fans and waiting in line and stuff like that. And we were one of the, Tom and I were one of the first at that Target near us, and it was exciting. So that I get that aspect, because it's an exciting thing, and you're around other fellow Star Wars fans, and it's cool. But I gotta be honest, there's nothing. So I figure I'm gonna just sit around at midnight and cruise Amazon and online, see if I can find anything. I'm like you. I'd like to get a good poster. Maybe there's a poster or something. Maybe a few T-shirts. Who knows? I don't know. I'm not really sold on the action figures too much right now, but we'll see. Maybe Lego shows off that giant whatever it is, and I'll let you know next week's podcast and how it all turned out, I guess you could say. But we'll move on from Force Friday. Hopefully you all have fun or had fun and got some stuff that you wanted. I get why other people like it and stuff. So, but anyway, let's get into this. Right before we came on air, Joe, we had a Yahoo Movies exclusive, which is interesting because it's another photo of Rey. And I just thought this is all it really is. It's just a photo of Rey. She's facing and looking down, and she's looking over at the water or whatever. Actually, she looks like she's looking at her coat now that I look at it, or whatever, her poncho or whatever it is. And of course, we see the giant rock next to her, which everyone thought Yoda was on top of it. And we now can confirm 100% that was not Yoda on top of the rock. But it got me thinking, Joe, because what it ties into this show tonight is that we see a lot of Rey. It looks like she's training on her own, which is something different from Luke and Anakin in a sense. Like Luke, I know, is what we've seen in the trailer where he's looking above her and she's, swaying the lightsaber and stuff. But again, here, this is more of her on her own. And we got that other picture where she had the lightsaber and she's on her own swinging it around. So I'm wondering if this is how this training is going to go. Is it like a training, like a disassociative training? Like I'm which makes no sense, I guess. Like I'm training you, but yet I'm not training you. I'm just kind of watching you and seeing how you go about it. And maybe every now and then I kind of say, all right, yeah, this is where you want to go, and kind of push you in that direction. Like a coach when you get to the pro level where, I don't think it's like Luke really needed training, but I'm going to save most of that for our main topic discussion. But Joe, what do you think of this image here?
Well, I mean, I guess it's pretty clear cut image. It's a nice shot, I guess you could say. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to say anything that we, what you were talking about, like from the trailer and everything. We just didn't really see a whole lot. We've seen some other photos with Rey and, from the Vanity Fair and such things where it's just like her with the lightsaber, but they're kind of very close images. Like even this one's semi kind of close. I mean, you don't know that Luke's not around, like right there.
Yeah,
so,
true,
you just,
and they're not going to show that.
I mean, well, they could, but like, they're just, whatever. They've just decided not to, but it is an interesting aspect. Maybe at first, Luke just kind of was like, I'm not dealing with you. And then she's just like, well, you'll come around eventually, but I'm going to go out and like train with my, I already have some staff skills. Maybe I'll try to train myself with the lightsaber or something like that. I guess, maybe you could just try to train yourself in a way. And then maybe that would prove to Luke that hey, quit being a hermit, man. Like, come out of hiding and help me out here.
But isn't that what Yoda kind of did with Luke? Kind of tested his patience and everything. Is Luke maybe we'll see a similar thing? But then again, Ryan said it's not exactly the same. So again, it looks more
I don't
like
think that Luke. I mean, from everything we're hearing, it just sounds like Luke is totally disinterested. Like Yoda was there for a mission, and he was testing Luke for a reason, and he was pushing his buttons and doing certain things on purpose. I think Luke is just not interested, and that's going to be a fascinating discussion when we finally really get to see the movie and we talk about Luke and we have that breakdown and we get to release that episode. I think that's the one I'm looking most forward to when we start all those character dissection breakdowns after The Last Jedi. I think Rey is going to be the first one we release because it's Rey and we have to, it has to be Rey first, right? But
the funny thing is, you might get you might get a third episode with Rey and Luke because we might have to talk about their relationship. Completely separate.
I mean, maybe.
Continue.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to tie in largely when we talk about that. But yeah, that's I think the episode that I'm looking forward to the most is that Luke, because we're going to be talking a lot about Luke leading up to The Last Jedi. I don't want to give any spoilers away with what we've got planned. But right before The Last Jedi, we're going to be doing a lot of Luke stuff. And then, come after the movie, obviously, there's going to be a lot more Luke to talk about and kind of tie in with what our thoughts were previous and then going in. And that all ties into the 100 days of The Last Jedi theme that we'll have going on and everything. So, yeah, I mean, it's a pretty cool image. Obviously nothing spoilerly or anything like that. But, just anytime you see a new image of Rey, you can't complain, right?
No, and I have to assume if this is in the movie, it's obviously early in the movie where she's still wearing her stuff from Jakku, or like when she left. I mean, Leia, when she left on leaving Leia there, she's in those, and she's not wearing the gray that we see her with Luke when they're up in those pictures from Entertainment Weekly and all that stuff. So it is interesting. It's curious. I don't think, the one thing you can take from it is, okay, we're getting pretty close now and it's getting exciting again. And I'm really looking, like you said, I can't wait to December when we can break down all these characters and all these things and do what we do, because from now and then, yeah, we got some good stuff planned, but man, I just can't wait to talk about Luke and Rey and that whole dynamic and how that works out and stuff like that. But anyway, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to have a little message from our sponsors. And Joa, why don't you tell them about it?
Mission to Zix follows the misadventures of Ambassador Plek Decksetter and his crew as they attempt to establish diplomatic relations with the inhabitants of a distant, uncharted corner of the galaxy, a quadrant often referred to as the ass end of space. This podcast is created by veteran comedians from the Upright Citizens Brigade Theater. The first season's special guests include cast members of Saturday Night Live, The Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, The Chris Gethard Show, Search Party, and other great comedies. Episodes are fully improvised, then edited and sound designed to become a fast-paced, serialized audio sitcom. Is the Ambassador's benevolent employer, the Federated Alliance, actually any less evil than the vanquished galactic monarchy was? Will omnisexual security officer Dar succeed in sleeping with her work crush? Will the droid C-53 manage to remove his restraining bolt and experience real emotions? Will their sentient starship, the Brigarian, Jade, reconcile with her countless ex-husbands? And will Ambassador Decksetter figure out how the window controls work, let alone pull off a mission? The only way to find out? Subscribe to Mission Zix. That's ZYXX, Zix, ZYXX. Listen and subscribe now for free on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcast. And guys, if you check the podcast out, I listen to it. It's very funny. It's got some Star Wars influences in it. Quite a few, actually, I think. And it's pretty funny, and it's not insanely long or anything like that. It's definitely like a sitcom style length that it's got to it. I enjoyed it. So I encourage you to check out Zix and find them on iTunes and wherever you get your podcatcher, or wherever you get podcasts at, I should say. And tell them, if you leave them a review, tell them that you found them through the Cantina Cast, because that will help us out. And so, yeah, that's it. I enjoyed it, Mike. It was a pretty cool podcast, and that's what I said. They asked me to leave them some feedback, and I said it was like a sci-fi sitcom. And that's what I said before I even knew what they were calling it. I said it was like a sitcom in space, and that's exactly what it sounded like, and you could visualize it and really watch it. So it was pretty cool. So again, that's ZYXX. Find it on your podcatchers, guys.
Well, I'll be curious to check that out because it seems pretty humorous and it sounds like a lot of interesting, like you get the Star Wars references, so I'm definitely going to check it out. But all right, Joel, so let's get into this Force Lightning round, which is a segment we've had for a little while. I guess it's kind of new. We kind of haven't done it in a little while. And you're going expanded universe on me tonight, so this ought to be interesting. I think we had this happen to us on CAD. I think we had this or last week or whatever. But anyway, shoot, what do you got for me, Joe?
Yeah, and so for those that don't know how this works, I just say a name and Mike gives me a one-word response. We move on to the next one, and at the end we'll recap and say why he said those words. So hopefully I'm not...
You say Myra Jade, aren't you? You're going to go Myra Jade.
No, we've already done that one,
ahead.
so I'm hoping I don't use any other ones we've done before. So I'm going to say one that I know you like, Darth Malgus.
Awesome.
Awesome. Ben Skywalker.
I miss him. Cool.
And I'm making this up on the fly, kind of. I meant to have all this planned out with the three that I wanted to do, and it just, time got away from me today. This is a name that keeps popping in my head, and I don't remember a whole lot about her. So let's just try to see if we can have a conversation about her.
I know her.
Well, I think you do. I mean,
yeah.
You know enough of the legends. Tenno Ka.
Strong. I would say strong.
Okay, so we go back to Malgus. Let's talk about Malgus just for a minute or so. You said he was awesome. We know him from Star Wars, The Old Republic. He became the false emperor at one point. He had the love interest with the Twi'lek in the book, and he ends up killing her. So,
which is why I think he's awesome, because he did what a Sith should do, and that's the difference. As I said, I think in an early, maybe in the old days, in the old podcast, I'd said he did what Anakin couldn't do. Like although Anakin kind of sort of killed Padme, but indirectly. Where Malgus kind of just said, all right, now I got no ties and I'm free. Like, that was an amazing moment, and I'm surprised they actually did it.
You sound very sadistic right now, Mike.
Well, you have to. I was getting over an ex at that time, so that maybe that was, I don't know. But anyway, what are your thoughts on him?
I mean, I always thought he was pretty cool looking when the video game first came out. Obviously, he has some Vader influence in him as far as his look goes, because he's got the mask after he gets defeated in a battle with Satele Shan, and she kind of crushes him with the rocks, and he's got to use the respirator thing and all this stuff. So he wouldn't be very good on a podcast, I don't think, but maybe he would. Maybe he would have an excellent voice even with that. So, but I just always thought he was just kind of just more cool looking than actually interesting. I remember reading the book by Paul Kemp. He was insanely overpowered even in the book, but it was kind of supposed to be that way because he was based on a video game character, and he was kind of this overpowered, kind of Dark Lord, and kind of, I remember at one point he lands on Coruscant, in the book going, when they're doing the treaty of the treaty or whatever of Coruscant or whatever it was called. And he goes down and all these people are around him, and he basically like force freezes everybody. Like he basically Kylo's everybody like around them or something. And it's just like insanely overpowered. But yeah, he was an interesting character, and he becomes the false emperor. I think like he takes up the mantle of the emperor actually in the video game itself at one point. And I don't know if he ever came back after you defeat him in that storyline, but I know probably people.
Well, he got frozen in carbonite, didn't he? And then they had that trailer a few years ago where they showed him. I can't remember. We got to get
the bad thing about Star Wars: The Old Republic is that like I still actually follow them on my Facebook, and they just replay their old trailers from like 6 years ago. That's like all they post, and it's like, get a new trailer, man. But other than that, so let's move on to Ben Skywalker, not Ben Solo. So why do you miss it?
I said cool. Well, I missed because I liked, and the Fate of the Jedi series was kind of bad, like a lot of the old EU stuff. And I know I've upset a lot of old EU fans and stuff, but too bad, get over it. And I don't mean to be harsh. But,
I'm trying to draw in new listeners here by talking about the EU, Mike, and you're just blowing it.
Yeah, I know. I know. It's a bit of a, but anyway, as I always said with the EU, I liked a lot of the characters. Some of the stories were good, but the overall, I think, is my problem with it. And the Fate of the Jedi started out good, then you bring Abeloth in, and it got wonky and weird and stuff. But with Ben, I like the Ben and Luke dynamic of them two speaking with each other and the mentoring and stuff like that. I thought that was great, and I love that. I kind of miss that now. But maybe things are a little different. Maybe now it's a daughter. I don't know. I'm just saying. But what are your thoughts on Ben Skywalker?
The last thing I remember about Ben Skywalker is that he was dating a Sith. Like that's the last thing I remember about it, and it was odd.
The Star Akai or something.
It was very weird because wasn't there a domestic violence issue in that situation? It was very. I can't remember. There was. And I don't remember. I don't know. It kind of felt odd to me, and it was just really weird. But yeah, I mean, I do like the aspect of that, which is not. I mean, it's not something we've seen before. Where Luke. I mean, I can't remember right off the top of my head. Luke does he the one who trains him, or Jason trains him at one point, doesn't he?
Correct. Yeah. Jason does. And then after in the Fate of the Jedi series, Luke is kind of with him because Luke is exiled and he goes with his father and stuff like that.
Family members train family members, which again, I said this an episode or two ago. We've never seen that in the movie. And, we were talking earlier in the episode about, things we haven't seen before, or this is a new kind of training. Well, we've never seen that before really in the movies. In the books, they've done a lot of different stuff, but in the movies, they really haven't as much. But, we talked about Jason, Solo a little bit, and then his, ex-lover there, Tenno Ka, was the last one I brought up. And, she actually got her arm chopped off in a lightsaber accident, training thing. So, and then she ends up giving birth to Jason Solo's daughter, who Han and Leia end up adopting and raising and all this in the EU. So, and she's from a Hapan, and who I have this weird theory that Snoke is a Hapan. Which nobody
I'm cool
cares
with
about
over the angel thing. Well, that angel thing just doesn't sit well with me. But
we're supposed to be good-looking people, right?
Yeah.
And Snoke was supposed to be and that's where I got it. I just feel like he's just a really he's like the NBA superstar of Hapes. So that's where I'm going with it. But back to Tenno Ka, I don't remember a whole lot about her. I just remember that she's basically gave birth to Alana. Is that her name?
Elena or something like that.
I can't remember. We're making ourselves sound like fools here with the old EU, but that's what happens because it's been ages and I can't remember stuff anymore. But anyway, so she was Jason Solo's love interest. So I mean, there you go.
Well, I think she was. Yeah, I think she was strong because she went through a lot. And I believe she was the leader of the Hapans in the Fate of the Jedi. I believe she was actually the one that was in charge. I could be wrong with that. Because her mother
was the queen or something, and was she was a weirdo. Correct. From what I remember.
Well, Alana is the kid's name. That's who it was. Yes, Alana is
the mom.
Jason's,
but Tenno Ka's mom, the queen mother or whatever, she was a weirdo. She was not.
Well, it's all. She
wasn't very good.
Anyway.
Is what I'm saying. She was. I don't know. So then they're high, and then I don't know. It's all very weird. But I always liked her because she didn't get a prosthetic arm. She just, right? I mean, there's even a cover of one of the books where she's just got the nub. She's just where at the elbow, she's just got it's just her arm there, where it's been cut off, and she doesn't replace it. So I don't know. I mean, there's something to that. I don't know if it's she was too proud, and she wanted to be kind of reminded by her mistake, if I'm not if I'm not mistaken with that. But I don't know. I think we're kind of out of our element with this, because the old EU, it's mind-boggling me right now, Mike.
All right, well, let's move on to our main topic, which is you can't teach the Force to basically Rey, which is something that I'd mentioned earlier with that picture, is where Rey is more on her own and she's kind of doing her own thing. And that could lead you to believe, like, all right, maybe she really doesn't need Luke to be hands-on. More like Luke needs to just nudge her and give her the old, yeah, that a girl, do this, do that type of stuff, and you're heading in the right direction. Like when you go to the trailer and you hear him saying, just breathe, like he's there to calm her and kind of guide her in the right way, not necessarily teach, but basically just get out what the Force is within her, I guess you could say, and kind of make her use it properly. I guess, I don't know, that is teaching, I guess, at the end of the day. But I fumbled over my words here. But anyway, Joe, I'll throw it to you. What's your main topic here tonight? Joseph Campbell stuff. Let's go.
Yeah, and for our listeners that know, they know that I get really crazy and wonky, and I read Joseph Campbell and my mind goes in 8 million different directions. So I'm just going to read a little quote here by Campbell, and then we can dive into it. Like, my focus on this is Rey, but we can talk about like the other ways that we've seen Jedi learn and train. And I mean, even Tourette is somebody that comes into my mind, kind of as an not that he's a Jedi, but so anyway, we'll get into it. Let me read the quote first. My friend Heinrich Zimmer, that's my friend, actually, not Joseph Campbell's. My friend Heinrich Zimmer used to say, the radio station WOB, Wisdom of the Buddha, is broadcasting all the time, but you've got to have a receiving set. And until you have the receiving set, well, you're not going to get the message. You can't teach Buddhism. You can't teach illumination. You can have different clues how to get it, but if a person isn't willing to paddle his own canoe, he's not going to get across the river. And I got that from The Hero's Journey. And this made me think initially of Rey and the way that, and it reminded me of a lot of the way, and even Luke in a way, in the beginning of his journey, but I'll stick with Rey for right now. In the way that she kind of refused the call to the lightsaber at first, and then she kind of used the mythos of the Force that maybe she had heard about on Jakku, like the Jedi mind tricks, or this is how you would do it, and then she kind of took in the little tiny little bit of tutelage that Maz Kanata was able to give her, with that you can feel the Force, and it's this and that, and she's able to use the mind trick, and people are always wondering, well, how is she so adept in the Force without being trained? And I think this quote kind of is gets you there a little bit, just because I'm thinking it's like a light bulb going off in your head. It's not necessarily about teaching somebody, because if you're going to compare like the Force adept, if you're adept in using the Force and manipulating the Force, I would say that in the case of a Jedi, they can't really teach you how to like move an object across the room. You just have to kind of get it. What the Jedi can do, what like Obi-Wan could teach Anakin, was the moral code of the Jedi. He's like, you already know how to move this cup across the room. Like, what I have to teach you is you're not supposed to take that cup and throw it at somebody's head, because that's not cool. It's not it's not our moral way. And I think that that's what the Jedi can teach. The Jedi would take in people who were already powerful in the Force. They were babies, so like they didn't know what they were doing, obviously, but they would come to know what they were doing. But you get what I'm saying, Mike? It's like they're naturally already gifted in the Force, but
what I was trying to say is, like,
teach it. It's already there in your mind. All they can do is teach you a code don't do it for this reason. Don't use it for that reason. That's all the Jedi can really tell you. Qui-Gon can't explain to Obi-Wan, or Obi-Wan can't explain to Anakin, okay, now concentrate in this way and you can move, you can call the lightsaber to you. Like, I don't think that it works that way.
Well, I mean, it's like I was trying to say, where Luke is just kind of, I guess, tuning the dials in for her to listen, so to speak, or like something needs to obviously call to them. Like if you want to go in the original trilogy, you can say like Leia, when she's in Empire Strikes Back and on the Falcon, she's hearing Luke, like it snaps, like something happens and she's finally receiving this knowledge that's been dormant or she's been ignorant to. Similar to Luke as well. He was kind of, I imagine on Tatooine, he wasn't doing pod racing and all these crazy things like Anakin was doing. Like, I think he was very ignorant to these abilities he had, and then he meets Obi-Wan, and it kind of is drawn out of him. Anakin was just so gifted naturally, like it was happening. I don't know. I wonder if Anakin, I mean, if Luke and even Leia had those moments where they're like a toddler or whatever, and they just started moving things with their mind and it didn't register or something like that. I'm not sure how that works really. It's almost I
think the point of the quote here is that there is like a consciousness level. Now we're talking about, I mean, the Force is like, you know, a magical kind of thing in a way, where you're able to move things and everything like that. You know, you're talking about Buddhism, and that's just like kind of a state of mind. I think that's, you know, but it's also in that transcendence, and it's being at peace with yourself and things like that. It's like, I think that's what the Jedi try to teach, but I don't think that you necessarily can teach that, because you look at Chirrut and Baze, because you've got Chirrut, I mean, and Baze like kind of went away from it, and he didn't believe in it anymore after so much bad stuff had happened and this and that. Chirrut still believed in it, and Chirrut, you know, he I assume he meditated, and he's like, the Force, it's with me, and it's, you know, it's within me and all this stuff. But he couldn't manipulate it. He wasn't doing all this stuff. So my point is that you can't teach the Force. You can believe in it. You can believe that it's a higher power. You can believe that it's going to do the right thing at the end of the day, I guess is the best way I can put it. But Chirrut can't manipulate it to do really what he wants. He believes in it, and we see that like in his final scene there in Rogue One, but he's never able, that we know of, able to manipulate it and to call things to him, force push somebody, you know, bring himself like a cup of wine or whatever he wants to do. Like he can't do that as far as we know. Or
is he just so disciplined that he doesn't do that? Because that's still, if you manipulate, that's the wrong action. I mean, we don't know that either.
That's a theory I love.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a theory I love, that like there's some people who could use the Force, but they choose not to because they consider it, I don't want to manipulate the Force because manipulation is wrong. And like, so like they're even more strict than maybe even the Jedi are, if you could see it that way. I'm just going to assume, though, that Chirrut couldn't do those things for this conversation.
He's like an antenna. He can just receive. He can't.
He can't project. He can just receive. I guess that's it. Yeah. And we've had this conversation before. So we'll assume that for this conversation that he can't project and he can't manipulate the Force. He can only receive, and but he's in tune with it, and he believes in it, and that's kind of like that. So he's got the antenna. He's got the receiving set, as Heinrich Zimmer would say, according to Joseph Campbell here. So he's got that receiver, but he's still not able to fully embrace the Force. So that's my point in the title of this episode. You can't teach Rey the Force because
it's already in her.
It's already in her, and she knows it. And I think that, I guess my qualm with this is, and I guess this is another discussion, we can have it if you want.
Bring it on.
But, you know, it seems like either the story group or Lucasfilm or whoever it is trying to say, well, anybody can be a Jedi. Anybody. And I have a or anybody can use the Force. Anybody can be a Jedi. Anybody can learn to use the Force. And I feel like that's kind of like this weird message that there's some subtly trying to portray through certain things that they've done. And people have picked up on it and they've said to me, and I'm like, I just don't like it because it kind of retcons other things that we know about Star Wars, specifically in the prequels, about, the magic word midichlorians, which I've come to love that word recently, because I just think it's hilarious now. But because it just, people just react to it. And I love that. But, so that's the way I'm looking at it, Mike, is that I just can't, I just refuse to believe that there's not a natural way, there's not a natural essence of the Force, like you're born being good at something. Because I think we see that aspect in real life all the time, where you're born being better. So it doesn't mean you don't have to work at it. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying Rey doesn't need to be trained. I'm not saying she doesn't have to become more proficient in her skills and learn from somebody who is more experienced than her and become more experienced herself. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that some people can run faster naturally than everybody else. And if you work at it, you're going to start running faster than more people. And then if you work at it hard enough, you become Usain Bolt. You know what I mean? You become an NFL guy who can just run past everybody else, and you catch touchdowns and you make millions of dollars a year. That's where I'm going with it.
Well, I get that. I mean, the analogy would be like me, for instance. And I have a dream of being
only so much
an
you
NFL
can
quarterback
do with your own physical physical born given abilities. You can want something and work at it as much as you want, but especially when it comes to physical God given, if you will, maybe that's a bad terminology, but it's the only one I know for it, like God given skills. I don't know where else I think people, it's an innate ability some people have. It doesn't mean you can't become good at something and become a professional at it. But I mean, how many instances have we seen, and I'll relate it back to sports just for a second, Mike, where you see somebody who doesn't have to work quite as hard as the people who work the hardest, and they're still so much better than they are. You know what I mean? Like, I can think of several names. I'm not going to name them because I don't want to, this is not a sports show, and I don't want to make, a sports person feel bad, with a player or something but
get back on topic.
But that's gonna, but that's real life is what I'm saying. So I guess what I'm getting back to is with Rey or whatever, like, she was born with something in her. And I don't know if anybody's arguing that. I guess it comes back to the lineage thing with her. You get what I'm saying? Because it just doesn't, something doesn't equate with me, like where people are like, well, if she's a nobody, but she has all these innate Force abilities. But how did that get there? Because somewhere along the line, there was some kind of a genetic structure, some kind of a biology structure that got it there. Like, it's like science and kind of like and God coming together and being like, okay, you're just going to be good at this.
Well, I mean, we had the prophecy, we had the chosen one before, so I mean, there's that argument. But with Rey, I think it's like she had something called to her, that lightsaber, and she rejected it. But it awoken, obviously, the Force awoken within her. So that's where all this started happening with her, with the the mind trick and calling the lightsaber to herself and all that other stuff.
And she's not willing to accept it until she does, until that dire moment, and then she has to accept it. And, when it's at that dire moment, and then when she does, she has the ability. It's not about what you can do or what you think you can do. It's like what I believe I can do. And that light bulb goes off in your head. And all of a sudden she's
similar to Leia at that moment in Empire Strikes Back, where she's getting ready to leave. And then all of a sudden it just clicks. She's got to go back and get Luke. Like, that's when it finally, and then when the Death Star explodes, she's kind of, awakening herself in a way. I mean, then you could make the argument, oh, she's a Solo. I mean, you could do that if you want to. But in any case, I think that's what the point here with the quote and everything is that the Force is within her. And just like Anakin and Luke and Leia, Ben and all that other stuff.
Well,
so
yeah, I mean, the question is that, well, I mean, obviously, and we know why Ben has the Force. Like, I mean, it's a gifted thing.
Yeah.
It's passed down through the biology of his family. And like, we accept this. But when it comes to like Rey, it seems to be like this big, huge contingency point where it's like, okay, well, if she's related to somebody, this makes her less of a person. This makes her less of an individual, which I have a hard time wrapping my mind around that. Like, and I don't know. I mean, that's not the discussion I'm trying to have, but that's always been a hard thing for me to wrap my mind around. But I mean, so like the one thing I'm really like if we're just let's just go off and speculate just for a minute on Rey. The one thing I'm really picking up on lately is this reincarnation thing, Mike. And
well, the funny thing about that is I actually, and I said it on an episode, I think maybe a year ago, where I was just driving and I said, there is a way it could work. Unfortunately, I was driving and I didn't write it down and didn't, I would have been pulled over to the side of the road and write it down. And I figured I would remember it, and I did not remember it. I'm not saying that they couldn't do that, but, I mean, if they do that, I mean, it's just, they got to pull it off, and I don't know if they can do that. But in any case, I don't want to turn this into a Rey is a Skywalker, Rey isn't a Skywalker. Get back to the Force awakening within her and her call to action. So take it from there, sir.
Well, I mean, I just think that, going into wrapping this subject up is that, I mean, if she, I mean, you see her fly the Falcon. I mean, and she's got this innate ability. I never left the planet. Like, and she just knows how to do things. But I think I guess the big one is the mind trick. When she does that mind trick, and it's like, I'm just going to believe it. And I think that's all that it really is. It's just like, I've heard, I don't know how she knew about a mind trick. I don't know. I'm not going to pretend to know where she learned it. I'm guessing, maybe she heard the traders talking about it like Anakin did, on Tatooine or something. But she heard about Jedi mind tricks, and she just decided to try it. And she's just said, I'm just going to go full force into this, no pun intended, and just do it and see if it works. What do I have to lose? And I think, she just gives into it. And I don't really know what else to say. I'm trying to come up with an explanation for how she's so adept with doing certain Force abilities that we've never seen other people do.
Well, again, I think it comes down to she just opened herself up to the Force, and it just kind of happened.
Because you have no other choice. Luke, I mean, you have no other choice but to open yourself up. It's either that or
correct,
or stay a prisoner and you're going to Snoke, right? Not that she knew that, but I mean, that's what was going to happen to her. But she knew nothing good was going to come of it if she just stayed strapped to that chair.
Correct. And you could even make the argument, I mean, it's a similar argument, but it's not, because Luke actually had Obi-Wan saying, trust yourself, blah, 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 to blow up even though I think Obi-Wan assisted him in blowing up the Death Star, but that's a whole other conspiracy theory that I've had.
I guess so. Yeah. Rounding this up is, do you think with Luke training her, do you think he can teach her anything about the Force, or is it about a moral standpoint? Or do you think Luke can make her more powerful? Like, is it in Star Wars, is it more than what Joseph Campbell is saying? It's just, as long as you have your antenna open, you can receive the message. But is it more than just receiving the message? Can Luke make her a more powerful person by training her, or is he trying to?
It's a matter of bringing it out.
Is he trying to indoctrinate,
or
is he trying to indoctrinate some kind of an idea into her? I guess is my question.
I don't know. It's hard to say, because Luke at one point thought Ben was the chosen one, in which that brings up a whole other can of worms, and we had a discussion about it a couple episodes ago. So can you trust even Luke's decision and his rationale on even Rey and what he thinks of Rey?
Because Jedi, you're not trying
Yeah.
to teach other Jedi how to become more powerful Jedi. You're teaching them.
No, it's a
You're
code.
teaching them a moral stance. You already know how to do all this. It's how you use it and how you use your power. It's not about gaining more power, because if you're talking about gaining more power, then you cease to be a Jedi at that point. So,
I think he thinks she's. From what I gather, from what we think, obviously I think they're stressing that Rey is probably going to be more powerful than Luke and Anakin was at one point. Which I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, I like that she's awesome and she's a very powerful Force user and stuff. And I'm open to her being the chosen one with the Force. And again, the prophecy misread and everything. And part of that is my old thinking of Anakin's the chosen one, and there's no one that can be more powerful than Luke and Anakin and Leia. So when we see this newcomer coming along, it's me trying to adjust to that. So that's on me, and whatever happens, I obviously will adapt and evolve my thoughts and opinions on it. So don't nail me and stuff like that. So there's time to evolve with the story. I think Luke thinks that she's like, as he says in the trailer, not that that's even in the movie where he says it's so much bigger and everything, where Rey is probably something bigger than we even can comprehend at this moment. And we'll find out in a couple of months, hopefully. And so far, and with 9 and everything. So obviously it's a bigger picture, and we're going to learn a little bit more about that come December. And it's very interesting to where Luke sees her. I'm curious where Rey sees herself with all of this. Like how is she going to figure this all out? Like, all right, now, wait a minute, I'm the chosen one. And, all these other things Luke tells her about Anakin, Ben, and all these other stories. And she's got to wrap her head around all of this. How is that going to affect her if she's going to be the most powerful Force user ever? And she's got all this, now she has all this baggage. I mean, that can lead someone down a bad path, as it did Anakin with all that raw power and everything and those emotions and everything. Although Rey seems to control her emotions more. Although there's that moment with Kylo where she's fighting, where she wants to give into her hate, where she's got that scowl on her face and she's gritting her teeth, like very much like Anakin. So it's very interesting where they'll go with it. I don't know. I'm very curious. I mean, God darn it, I just want the movie here so we can talk about it and stop the speculation and just go from there and figure out, okay, this goes to here and that goes to there, and we figure out what's what.
Well, we can't ever stop the speculation, Mike. That's what the Cantina Cast is built on.
Oh, I know that, but it'll go on to something else. You know what I mean? Like, it'll move on to something else to speculate. But I don't know. In any case, I guess that's where I stand with it. I mean, I think The Force Awoken, obviously that's the name of the movie. I think with her and Luke, I think it's a dual thing with the both of them. They both refused the call to action. Well, Luke kind of went into hiding, and who knows what his real reasons were, but we'll find out and stuff. So it's very similar. I personally think Rey saves Luke and brings him back towards the Jedi way, but that's just my thought, and I've had that for a while. But anyway, shall we get into the Patreon questions, sir?
Oh, sure. So Phil has a question for us. He says, I think we're going to agree on this one, Mike. He says, what is your favorite Star Wars book outside of the novelizations of the motion pictures, and which one would you pick to be a TV series or standalone movie?
Well, I'll let you go first.
I mean, if I'm reading the question right, I can say Plagueis, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't say
we
canon. It doesn't say canon anywhere.
True. Well, actually, I think an interesting one, and because A New Dawn is still one of my favorite canon books, actually. It's probably right up there. Bloodlines as well, although that would be a little difficult now unfortunately, with Carrie and everything. But A New Dawn would be very interested to see a young Kanan, who we liked because he was the drunken brawler, guy there. And then you saw the Hera there, who was that skulking rebel agent that we loved. We loved that. And then you get Count Vidian, who you just loved Vidian back in the day when we read the book. So that would be pretty interesting. And Plagueis, obviously, I mean, that's kind of a no-brainer for us because obviously there's so much mystery there that we would like to explore. And the book itself was really great. And I don't see, there might be a few things where they would have to retcon or adjust to make it officially canon. But overall, I'm curious how they would go about that, Joe, with the book. Would they redo the book and just take out what doesn't sync up and just kind of reissue it? Or would they just kind of say, all right, this is canon, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. Because I remember when we read that book And then you're watching The Phantom Menace and you realize when the Chancellor's meeting them and all that, he's actually watching that all take place from a different spot. So that's pretty interesting. It added a little bit to episode 1 and everything, knowing that he was alive and everything. So yeah, I would love to see Plagueis. Anything else? I guess A New Dawn. And I don't know. What else, Joe? What else you got?
Oh, I mean, I just have to go with Plagueis because it would just, not necessarily from the episode 1 perspective, but from, I want to see just some kind of standalone with him because I think there's been this outcry for Plagueis with all of the Snoke theory and stuff. And we know he's not Plagueis. We know Snoke is not Plagueis, but with the outpouring of that, I think that Disney needs to realize that Plagueis is a legitimate character that can be played with here.
Well, let me say that if we're going to pitch a movie with Plagueis, all right, so Plagueis lived for quite a while. It wasn't just like, within the realm of what I would like to see is maybe if we go before he takes Palpatine as an apprentice, maybe 10 years before that with him and his master and how that played out in the Sith way and do I'd be interested. I don't know if everyone would be into that, Joe.
I would actually turn it into, I would have a side love story in it though. Because Palpatine said,
you could do that.
Says he could save the ones he loved. I would like to see Plagueis actually
similar to Anakin, right?
But I would actually like to see Plagueis actually be able to save the person that he loved. I would actually like to see that happen and do it to be an actual force power, and he could do it while he was trying to come up with a way that, I can save my own life too. But he was never able to accomplish that. That's the end goal. Is to save my own life.
True.
But in the meantime, I can at least manipulate the midichlorians to save everyone else that I choose to wish to save. He would be that powerful, and we would kind of see it. It would be a different kind of a movie. It would be, but yeah, I would love to see it. Like and even if it was bogged down politically, I would like to see that. Like I wouldn't mind that, but a lot of people would mind it because they don't want the politics or whatever in it. But
you don't have to do that as long as you make it like
I guess you could throw the book out and just make a Plagueis spinoff,
redo it. Yeah, I mean you'd have to make it where it's like a thriller in a way where there's covert Sith things going on and maybe some Jedi in the way and they get killed and stuff like that. And if it could lay the groundwork that ties into, say, the Phantom Menace and the prequels and things to come after that a little bit, you get those little hints, but it frees you from being exactly like we've said in the chat and on the podcast many a times for like the last few years. We need to get out of the era that we're in a way where we're kind of dangerously close to mucking up the canon, so to speak, where we might start stepping on toes and things will become a mess type of stuff.
That's why at least if you go back every day of the week.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, if you go back maybe 40, 50 years or even 100 years before he meets with Palpatine or something like that, that's not a bad idea. I mean, even at the end, you could make it where he takes Palpatine as an apprentice maybe. That might be interesting there. You could do something like that. But I guess at the end of the day, Plagueis is our choice. Even though I mentioned A New Dawn just to be different and because I liked Kanan's character and Hera's character in that novel. I thought John Jackson Miller did a great job with that book, and it's probably one of my favorite canon novels still to this day, and Plagueis is my favorite EU novel still to this day. So, but in any case, that was our Patreon question, which you can do. It's $5 a month, and you can go to our Patreon and just ask us your question, and there's a bunch of other perks too as well, so go check that out. But Joe, tell us where to like us, find us, and all that other good stuff.
Yeah, you can find us on our Discord chat channel. Just check out our social media. You'll find it eventually, and if you can't,
well, there's a link in the description anyway. Okay, of the show,
well, that's perfect. And then if you have trouble still, you can email us at cantinacastfanmail@gmail.com, and you can send anything else there as well if you want to. And but I gotta say that Discord channel is blowing up, guys. So if you want to have a Star Wars talk, just come in there because it's where it's at, and you can get directly a hold of us, and that's the best place to do it. But other than that, Facebook.com/TheCantinaCast, Twitter and Instagram @TheCantinaCast. And I already mentioned the email. Find us on iTunes and all the podcatchers. And don't forget to check out our sponsor for this episode, Mission to Zix, and go and find them on iTunes and leave them a review and tell them the Cantina Cast sent you. If you do that, I will be much, much appreciated to you.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for this week. We will see you guys next week. And maybe I'll have some Force Friday news. Maybe I got some bobbleheads from Funko or something like that. But anyway, we're out of here. See you guys later. You're still listening? Wow. That's amazing. Well, I'm here to give you the disclaimer. Normally we do a big, long, drawn-out disclaimer thing saying what's what and who's what and all that other stuff, but I think you guys kind of know that Lucasfilm and Disney have no affiliation with us at all, and we have none with them. We talk about Star Wars, which is their property and all that other good, fun stuff, but I think you can tell which is our stuff and which is their stuff. If you can't, well, then send a lawyer to send an email to me, and I'll be glad to chat with them. Other than that, you know what's what, so that's your disclaimer.